try.
Everybody should understand, especially those in America, that Meniooh was just on a mission. Before he came to America, he was on that mission. So this whole city, he's the one. Now they have a radio. You heard that the radio announced that we were going to have this. He brought radio infrastructure to this city first. And he did it to express his mission. We need to get back to ancestral ways. This is what we need to be doing. But even before he could get started, the politics put him in trouble. He couldn't really get going. Everywhere he go, he bringing that same mission. He see people leaving tradition for the new ways, the new politics. Everywhere he's going, he's telling people, don't abandon this. This will make us who we are. They're not just taking gold or whatever. They're taking our world from us. We have to protect our world. Even to come to the West, I'm saying this because I don't want people in America and the West to think like we special. He was trying hard here first. At a certain point, he had to see the people here are listening to the people out there. It's better I go affect the people out there, and when then they go look into those people, they will just see, just like these people were saying, they will see, oh, we standing in what we should be standing in. Everything we need is right here, but we busy looking over there, and now those people are coming back here to get what we have. So everybody, all of these tribes, Meniooh met them. He was bringing that message to all of them. That's why even the people here yesterday in the dance was like, we all follow Meniooh. Let's see if you followed him well. How can you dance? Because Meniooh was saying the same thing to everybody. And not everybody now is appreciating him, but not at that time. At that time, they were like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, crazy you into Rasta. The old ways. You're a crazy Rasta. So now they're just seeing, wow, this guy really was a prophet. Even that village that we went to where they brought it up that he's speaking about, we went there one year, many years ago, and they were like, he's our prophet. If you guys don't understand, he's at the prophet level. We were depending on him going out and doing what he did, and he succeeded because you guys are all coming. So that's why the Meniooh influenced everybody. It's just now more and more people are catching up. Like, wow, what he was really talking about was true. We were underestimating him, and look at how it's growing. Look at what it's doing. Look at the value he's bringing back to our identity, even across the world, while we still here, you know, not sure about it. So.
And not only that, it wasn't just local. We went on the last pilgrimage with him to Mali, to Segu Koro, a village, and he called the king out for being corrupted with Islam.
Many kings.
He called him out, shook him down in front of everybody, and the guy took it. He was like, yeah, this is what we do. I never, I mean, it's just, he had that authority even outside of the family ties.
Many kings.
Welcome back to the Chicago Sunnyside podcast. We're excited about our new episode we have at you guys from after a brief little pause or something. We've been traveling in West Africa. I'm still here in sunny Burkina Faso, and my brother and sister here are back in Chicago. We are again your hosts. I'm Kasabez, and then we have Nehez and Giziribtah back there in Chicago at our temple. We're happy to have you guys again tuned in with us. We just got back from our annual pilgrimage to West Africa. Particularly, we were in Burkina Faso and Togo, and we just completed our celebration of 30 years of the Kebtah Mission in the West. So we're going to, continue to bring you some great clips. What you just saw was a clip from our trip, and we have some more
Well, that was an amazing intro, because when you think about this mission, it is so profound. It is so great. Like, we're celebrating 30 years of this mission. And that may not sound like a long historical time, but for any organization to be sustaining itself in the crazy environments that we've had to go through, to have 30 years of this type of work under your lapel is something that's really commendable. We're just very honored, very grateful to the Maakmaah, to the communities, to the villages, to the leadership, the dignitaries, the seen, the unseen realms that have been holding this work tight and preserving it for us. And it's just, again, an honor.
Yeah, it's not just that. Like, any organization, any business, to stay around for 30 years is a lot. But then when you think about one started by a man from a village in Africa by himself, that's not playing any of the games, keeping up with any of the rules to bring you the freshest and the coolest and the most up-to-date product, to do all of that, but to stand on the very identity that the colonial world has been working tirelessly to let humanity know is not worth our time, not worth our attention, but to stand on that and say, hey, come and learn about that, come and reconnect to that, and to be doing that for 30 years and to still be going even after that founder passed away. You know, it's really, to put a word on it, is almost like you're going to belittle it a little bit. Even to call it extraordinary, to call it unbelievable, it's like too little. It's too. It doesn't do well enough to describe it. But it's really a privilege to be a part of. I'll just say that, and it was a privilege to be on this pilgrimage. It's a privilege to be on every pilgrimage, but this one where we got a little time to feel proud of ourselves, for those of us who have been putting our efforts in, for those of us who have been contributing, for those of us who have been, making our wishes for this thing to continue to move forward, and for Master Naba's work to continue to expand. It was really a privilege to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I had to choose a word, and I'm going to go ahead and choose one, monumental is the word I would choose. Anyone not familiar with the Kebtah Mission, Kebtah, or the Earth Center, is a mission founded by the one you all heard us calling the Maakmaah. You'll hear us calling the Maakmaah from time to time, or the Truth Teller. But his full name is Naba Lamusa Morodinibig, and he came from Burkina Faso. But you'll see also where our celebration took place in Togo. That's where his mother's side is also from. It's monumental also, for all the reasons they named, but let me just add one too, that in all this time, the Earth Center has not relied on grants, has not relied on foundations, has not relied on government assistance. As a nonprofit, we've relied totally on grassroots activities. And so to be able to do that and then be in Africa and see how many people are here appreciating this mission, even depending on this mission for their livelihoods, for the sake that they're involved with the healing services that we provide people and the different activities that we have, and their livelihoods are depending on this. We're really here making a difference, and to be like as my brother said, having been grinding to make this keep going for this amount of time, it's sometimes difficult to really step back and take a look and see what you've accomplished. So this was a moment for us to really take note of that. So I'm definitely appreciative to have been a part of this ongoingly, but also the celebration.
Yeah, and just as Nehez was saying at the beginning of this clip, when he was talking about the Maakmaah was willing to, speak truth to power in any sort of setting, any sort of environment. He didn't hold back. When he saw that there was a need for people to stand on the culture, support what indigenous people were doing, and to not concede to what the outside forces was bringing. He just promoted that relentlessly, to the point where some people thought that, yeah, this guy's a little off. The world is moving in this particular direction. We're going to follow suit. But even when people did do that for a temporary season or for a period of time, it only took a couple of years or a generation, if you will, for them to come to realization that, hey, the new direction that we're going is taking us in the wrong way. And we have to go back to the indigenous traditional ways of going about life.
So this being our 32nd episode on the Chicago Sunnyside podcast, we are going to, as you can tell, spend this episode really basking in the enjoyment of that celebration. The celebration we just came back from. We just finished this year's pilgrimage, the annual pilgrimage that the Earth Center takes for this year, 2025 or 424. And that's really what the focus of this episode. And we're coming out of an episode with Elder Anthony Cole. Shout out to Elder, who came on talking about getting involved in documenting your family history, not just at the level of, basic information like where ancestors were born, their birth dates, where they were married, where they died, where their tombstones are, their graves are, but also getting into really the value of our ancestors and our forefathers, our grandmothers, how they lived their life, what was important to them, what they valued in their lives, what family wisdom they used and they tried to bring into their children. So that's really what we walk away with when we hold and value the memory of our ancestors, because our ancestry is supposed to lead to us understanding our own identity. As we understand our ancestry, as we connect to it, we understand better ourselves. And so we want to thank again Elder Cole for coming on the show. And it's a perfect kind of segue or lead up to this episode, because that's really what the Kebtah Mission is about. The Kebtah Mission is about reconnecting with humanity's roots, humanity's indigenous cultures, or really even the principles underneath the cultures that you see on different tribes, on different areas around the world, the culture, the language that is underneath that provides the principles that allowed all of those different tribes, those different territories to express themselves on the level of spiritual culture, on the level of what we call today ancestral culture. And so really the success of that mission, having went around the world for the last 30 years, after Master Naba brought it to the West, to the United States, we now have locations not only in the United States, but in Canada, in England, as well as throughout West Africa. And we are carrying on the mission, teaching classes, allowing people to get back into the original forms of education that maintained indigenous Kemetic culture. We are publishing, trying to promote and spread information coming out of the Kemetic principles and Kemetic history. And we are performing, performing revitalizing projects to make sure that we can fortify the stance that those who are standing in tradition are taking, so that they have what they need for their livelihood. They have support from those who have left the homeland, left the ancestral ways of life, but now see the value of it and want to make sure that those who have stayed in it can do so and have clean water, have all of the resources they need to continue to thrive and not have to be taken away from that which we all value, which we all have a benefit from, and have to be led into the culture of globalism and modernization that we all know. So that mission being carried on for the last 30 years, this year on our annual pilgrimage, which is another aspect of the mission that we have continued in bringing students, initiates, members, and guests, friends and family of the mission back home to the Niger Valley, Burkina Faso, Togo, Benin, Ghana, some of the places that we go to see the living culture, the living Kemetic culture, and the historical sites, the spiritual sites of that living culture as one can plug into them today through Kebtah as the facilitator. This year's pilgrimage, at least on the 3-week trip, the trip that we opened to the public, was focused on that celebration.
And yeah, there was so much to it when you won't even be able to capture it if you took a look at some of the footage that we are sharing publicly. There's so many levels to it because surely you all will get an opportunity to see a lot of the celebratory aspects of the pilgrimage itself, but there's so much more depth and dynamics that you won't be able to see unless you come and experience it for yourself. And that's what so many people are always questing and thriving, trying to figure out, how do I reconnect to my roots? How do I reconnect to my ancestry? What can I do? And going back home is something that's so vitally important for anyone who's trying to reconnect, and not going on like a superficial trip where you're going to stay at the Ramada Hotel and you're taking these touristic guided tours and those types of things, but trying to embed yourself and get behind the scenes of what Meniooh, what people know as Africa, is all about, because the culture itself is what has sustained humanity, whether we know it or not, like it or not. It's those indigenous people that are preserving life, preserving the ways of living, connecting to nature. That's what sustains us. And we can see, like, when we're here in this modern society, I was just telling Nehez earlier today, I was running to Meniooh this year because I was feeling so off balance, disconnected. We see all the political madness that's happening around the world, the wars, the chaos, the destruction, all of these types of things. It just leaves you like, where is the society leading us to, and why are we willingly following it? But when you go back home, when you get a chance to connect to authentic traditional culture and the way that people are in alignment with life, family, traditions, nature, all of those things, it gives you at least a kind of like a sigh of relief, like, okay, all is not lost. We do have a fighting chance if we humble ourselves, discipline ourselves, and embrace what traditions have to offer.
So in coming back, it's like pressure is released, or what?
The pressure is released, but it's so funny. It's like, no sooner than I got back to the States, what do you get, indoctrinated into? What has Trump been doing for the last 100 days? Mm-hmm. Oh, he's only been off in 10 days, but it feels like 100 because this guy is just, off the rails. And it's just like, well, this is what we asked for. Everybody's trying to, and not to like beat Trump down, because everyone is trying to preserve what they think is right, what they think is good. And so they're going to bring their ideologies, their perspectives, their policies, their politics into our lives and kind of enforce that upon society. Whether it seems crazy, right or wrong, good or bad, that's what people are, geared up for. And so when you go to a place that's so disconnected from all of that madness and see something that makes sense, when you get a chance to come back to it, it gives you a chance to assess it with a fresh set of eyes, because one, going on pilgrimage allows you to recalibrate yourself, allows you to understand why you do the things that you do in this effort of reconnecting to your ancestral heritage. So when you come back to a society that's not functioning in that capacity, it allows you the space, because you had the time to do the recalibration, to approach it from a fresh set of eyes, a fresh approach, and looking for solution to that, because it's easy to just get back into the grind of it, the battle of it, the fight of it. But indigenous people always are looking for solution, always looking for the harmonization. How do we solve this particular problem, as opposed to like fighting it, going at it head to head, toe to toe in a combative way? That's like how we're kind of conditioned to be more competitive in that fashion. And that's where you see all the wars, all the chaos, because everybody's trying to force their agenda, force their perspective, as opposed to finding the harmonious way to resolve conflict and problems.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. And Kasabez, before we get into some clips for our viewers to see what goes on pilgrimage and kind of get a taste, at least virtually, from the camera, which is really not a taste at all, because as we say, the dust on the feet is different than the dust on the butt. And what you can get out of this, sitting at home, watching.
No, you did not.
Nobody wanted to see that. What you can get at home, sitting at home watching this broadcast, versus what you could get actually coming and putting your feet on the soil directly, as clearly Kasabez has been doing, is totally different. But before we get to that, I really want to make the point of what a pilgrimage is, really, because so much confusion, we have so much association to words like pilgrimage, and now all we have as what to associate it with is religion and religious rhetoric, religious doctrines, religious pilgrimage, and things like that. But when we're really talking about a pilgrimage, shout out again to Elder Anthony Cole. Even Elder Anthony was talking about what he started to get when he started to travel down south and visit where his family is from, where his dead relatives are buried, looking for their tombs, getting to stand there, having the memory of knowing that his family was congregated there, sending off their loved ones. These are the kind of trips that are fundamental to us. We don't have to believe anything to go on it. We don't have to believe anything for it to reach somewhere deep inside of us, because it's us. Now, if you consider, not only can we go back to where our ancestors are buried, but if our ancestors were holding tradition, meaning they still kept their ways, their ceremonies, their knowledge of how to connect with nature, how to connect with the powers in nature, then when we go back to where they're from, we get to go to where their graves are. We get to participate in ceremonies for interacting with the spirits of our dead relatives or our ancestors. But we also get to go to the rivers that they took care of, the rivers that provided them with the drinking water, with the irrigation for their crops, with all of the things they needed. Now, the powers of those rivers are important to our very ancestry. We get to go to the environment, whether they lived in the mountains, whether they lived on the coast, and connect again with that area that was so fundamental and important to our ancestors. They ate food from that place. They, collected medicines from that place, et cetera, et cetera. And now when you talk about that on a larger scale for our whole species, our whole human family, then you can see that historically it was important for people to go back to the origins of human enlightenment, human spiritual culture, spiritual education. And the Nile Valley was always important for that. Just like now, no matter what school you go to, no matter what museum we go to, no matter what university we go to, what research you're doing, you go back and look at human civilization, we always come to find ancient Egyptian civilization and how refined it was and how, elaborate it was and all of that. That's for a reason, because it has a very integral place in Africa, in our motherland, as where humanity opened its eyes to enlightenment, to civilization. And so we always went there on pilgrimage, which at that time was called the Misra. And those who traveled, who became pilgrims for that pilgrimage, called themselves the Misra, or the children of God, I can say, because they now have the drive, the will to open their eyes and reconnect to those roots, reconnect to the source of that will to elevate ourselves spiritually, that will to go towards enlightenment. And so that's really what we're talking about when we talk about a pilgrimage. We'll put the link in the description on how you can go and read more on our website about our annual pilgrimage, before we get to showing some of the clips from this year's pilgrimage. I don't know, Kasabez, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit.
No problem.
So, back here in Meriooh, I'm just fortunate to not have had to run back to the cold over there. I see you guys drinking your tea. Not for you. I'm not rubbing it in for y'all. I'm rubbing it in for the listeners. You know what I mean? Because get it to be here, and I just recently moved. I've been here trying to get my family, settled into our new home and things like that. Just got done enrolling the children in school, so they'll be in school for the rest of the year. So, just getting life back going, day-to-day life, not pilgrimage life. It's been good, and I'm watching from afar with interest all of Trump's Making America Great Again. And as far as I'm concerned, he can keep making America great, because I'm over here and, I'm here trying to make my family great again, trying to make my bloodline great again. And, that's my focus. I don't really associate my identity with America so much anymore, because even though it's a great influence on me, has been a great influence on my life, obviously having grown up there and having family there, I have interests there. Lots of people I know are there still, but the world I'm trying to build is over here. And so I could be a little more detached when I hear about how he's going to take over Palestine or the Gaza Strip. And I can say, hey, he's not necessarily speaking for me. It's not really my business. We'll see how it goes. And I don't have to feel like, so invested, I think, we get to feel so invested in what's going on with American politics because we don't really have our own thing that we're building outside of that. And so having that has been a blessing for me. And I really just, before we move into some of this footage, I just want to continue to encourage all of our listeners, our viewers who are maybe watching the Earth Center, following the Earth Center, or maybe just came across this because they're interested in someone talking about Africa. I know a lot of people, whether they Kebtah members or whether they're involved in other community organizations who are, very Afrocentric in ways in terms of, dressing or, using certain terminologies and things of that nature. But it's a whole different level to be here and be like living. And, some of us have really like made difficult choices to sacrifice, maybe having the type of high paying, stable jobs to be part of America's middle class, or, whatever wealthy entrepreneur opportunities to try to invest ourselves into having at least the flexibility to be able to be over here and raise our families and our children over here. That those are worthy investments too. When people talk about investing in their futures, they talk about mostly financial means. And I just was seeing a movie yesterday where there's, one of these typical movies where you have a couple raising children and they become teenagers and suddenly they hate their parents and you can't even talk to them about taking their phones away and things of that nature and stuff like that. Like, it was a movie, but I'm looking like that's a real thing that people are dealing with. I was telling my daughters, like because they watched it with me, I was like, don't ever become like that, So, I have an opportunity to raise them in a different way. And I think that's going to be, going to pay off in the future. Time will tell, though. And people always, want to guess and ask you about what you're doing and is it the right thing and blah, blah, blah. And I always say, we'll see. Because, we still trying something that hasn't been tried before. But it's better to try something that, hasn't been tried before in terms of coming from a colonized situation and trying to put yourself back into traditions and give your children back to those traditions that your ancestors came from. We know those ancestral traditions are ancient, and they have worked for our ancestors for a long time. But as far as us being removed from that and then now trying to put ourselves and our children back in it, that's the part that's like, different. But I say it's better to do that instead of trying to continue to, spin our wheels on the same hamster wheel, tread water or whatever we can do. And we keep digging ourselves deeper and deeper into the abyss. So,
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's experimental and you kind of like see how it all plays out. In reality, it's like we don't have many options in this domain because it's like we
exactly
where this society is leading us to, and it's straight off a cliff, whether we know it or not, like it or not. But most people are kind of just feeling like, well, this is all that they know, this is all that we've got, and so we just keep following the system, even though we see that it's on a destructive cycle. And if we
it's pretty clear. I just heard Trump say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just heard Trump say that we probably going to need to double our energy production just for the energy demands of data centers to power the new AI infrastructure that everyone's supposed to be dependent on nowadays. I'm like, are we not learning anything from what's been happening? Sorry, go ahead.
No, the system is just not sustainable. It is totally not sustainable if we continue to do what is not working. So to do something different, to go back to something that has already been tried and true, because we have a long history of people functioning this way for hundreds of thousands of years, and it was working fine before the colonial political influences came to disrupt all of that. So all of the pilgrimages that Nehez is talking about, as far as like returning to our spiritual roots, returning to culture, returning to what makes sense, for us to just go shrug our shoulders like, well, should we do what our ancestors were doing? We really don't have a choice in the scenario if we want to be like survivals, and that's just the end of it for me.
Yeah, but it's just about where our attention is. And each person in life has to choose their priorities. Are you going to value money more than everything else? Money that represents, especially if you're a person of color, just the slaughter and torture of your ancestors. If they weren't slaughtered, if they weren't enslaved, if they weren't tortured, that money wouldn't have its value. You should understand that. So it represents their torture. Now, that money, though, can be printed. Anytime they need more, they print more. Ancestral heritage and what Kasabez is talking about, the investment he's trying to make for his children, you can't print that anymore. That's the wealth of knowledge that's been kept by people who value their ancestral culture. That can be printed. So now if a person a person in life sees, okay, should I value this one that my politicians can play with, that people can print more of and change the value of, that all of this? Or should I value what makes human being a human being? And should my investments go there or should it go there? But that's really what we're talking about with this pilgrimage. For those who do see the priority in their ancestral culture, what can be reprinted, but what we have to humble ourselves to, because it represents our history, our identity, and where the possibility of where we could go. The Earth Center for the last 30 years has been leading a pilgrimage in the tradition of the Misra, but instead of going to the Nile Valley, we go to the Niger Valley areas, Burkina Faso, Togo, just as we were saying. And so we have a few clips to show from this year's trip. And I want to get to those so we don't run out of time before we get to show our viewers some things.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to show this next clip. And I just wanted to add quickly that when mentioning where the Earth Center is present, where our locations are, we also would be remiss if we didn't add that we are connected and tied in with existing cultures, with existing royalties, with existing villages across this region. And so this next clip that we're going to show is from the first village of the clan that we call the Mola, which is like the founding clan of the Tim tribe in Central Togo. That tribe and that clan specifically descended from the Gormanche tribe of eastern Burkina Faso, where our founder, Master Naba, is also from. So just interesting historical tidbit. We're going to get into this clip of our visit there and talk with some of the royalties and dignitaries and priests that came there to welcome us graciously. And it's not something to take for granted that we get to talk to, kings and queens in Africa. And I always say, people talk about in Africa, we used to be kings and queens. Like, we have kings and queens there right now, and it's not everybody who gets to be a king or a queen, but we do still have kings and queens. And so it's an honor to be in contact with them so that we can say that the presidents who represent the authority of the colonizer are not our only representation here. So here's a little bit more from them.
Okay. So you come into the umbilical cord of this land, come into this village, make sure you make all of your wishes for everything that you struggle with, so that then your ancestors can stood and then help as well. The powers receive everything we came to do. Like the place where I started to pick him up, that's where the ancestors were. And then these used to be like where they come to worship and then do their, spiritual stuff. But because when the French arrived and the German, all of them arrived to colonize and all of that expansion, so they fought them a lot to the point where the best way to protect themselves is to come all the way here. So from here, it's difficult for them to get here. But from here, they can even see them. So they will protect the families here, and the youth will be all the way on the other side fighting with them. So that's why they end up just establishing it. It's saying that when we came and we saw even everything, there's some trees have white on them, the rocks have white, everything is like white. We came right on time because even them, there had been an era where white men ideology took over to the point where the government, the ministers, even them, their children that they sent to school to go learn and all of that, they got lost or they went too far into the white man stuff. And it took them this year to go to the government and tell them, you can't just take our children like that and then, forget about what we have. This is something that we cannot abandon. So the problem the question that you ask does not really affect people that are born outside of the traditions or culture of villages. It affects also people that are born here. Because once you send them to school, then they end up just, getting astray and then forgetting that this exists. So them, they saw the danger of, coming too close to the white man ideology. They saw the danger of it, and they saw how white man ideology has the intention to just annihilate everything that them they are. So that really frustrated them to the point where they have to go to the government and call even some of their children that became like ministers in the government now to say, you need to wake up and realize that without your villages, you don't exist. You can try to be like a white man, but you're not going to be like him. You're only going to still be yourself. So make sure that you organize yourself and you come back to help us, revive whatever is the reason why you even get to be where you are today. So then all of them came back together, and then they did the ceremonies, kill a cow, they make offers of cows and everything. The ministers, all of them came with the government to help them, reactivate everything. So this is something that is, general. And it's not just only people who are born outside and that are trying to reconnect. Even them who are born here, they're trying to now reconnect as well, because they try to follow the white man ideology and kind of get them too far astray. Like there was a time where religion took over. Religion took over. Those who came from the north, those who came from the south, they took over a lot of traditional stuff and all of that. But as their ancestors and their powers kept repeating to them, what comes around goes around, what goes around comes around. So everything will end up coming back. Everyone will wake up to see the reality and end up going back to the original ways of doing things. Natural ways. And then the one that even came to allow them to even wake up to learn, like, let's go back to our tradition, is the Meniooh. He's the one to come and then allow them to be like, you don't want to give up on that, keep fighting for it.
This is the village that we see Nehez talking about in the beginning clip, where he said that they were acknowledging our Maakmaah, Master Naba, as a prophet. And, this village is a very key place for us to visit and give honor to. And maybe we could say some more about the fact that, when you're coming and visiting a land and you're doing some major activity, it was also significant for us to go there to that village as like a central village, or our leader there, Giziribtah, was saying, the umbilical cord of the region actually that we were in. To go there and pay our respects, and to even ask permission of the powers there for the activities we were getting ready to do with our celebration, because that gathering there, or that visit, took place before the actual celebration began, about a couple days before.
Just to set a little more of the aspects of that you may not be able to see from the footage, but the places that are still being preserved by indigenous people are so magical. They're so pristine. They're so well maintained that you think that you're in some sort of resort somewhere, because it's just this natural order, this natural world where people are living harmoniously with nature. And it's really breathtaking and very humbling to go to, because people will always ask me when I travel to and from Meniooh, do you feel safe? Is it okay to drink the water? Do you feel threatened?
Did you see lions?
Yeah. Are you going to be attacked, and all of these types of things? And it's you can go there and not feel any sense of threat, if you will, because here, I'm surprised you all haven't heard it, maybe because it's snowing now, but usually it's sirens and police cars and all sorts of lights and bells and whistles going off that you don't even recognize it, because it's just so part of your natural reality. where there, it's like people are taking care of what needs to be taken care of. The families are working together. The community is doing what they have to do. They're farming, they're cooking, they're cleaning, they're taking care of children. They're, as shown, it's like there's this order of protection where you don't have to have an outside police force governing your community because you are self-governed. And that is so, again, humbling to be a part of. And so you don't really get to see all aspects of that from the footage that we're showing. But again, if you go there and actually experience it for yourself, you can really absorb this notion that there's so many things more valuable than money. So many things more valuable than what the modern society is selling us and telling us and teaching us, educating our children. Like, this is what you should be striving to be. And so many things that they have us setting our goals for, one, are not achievable, and two, it's going to set limitations on you and your life. And three, it could be pointing you in the wrong direction. And it's like, it's not until you get to an older age that it's like, well, what was my life really for? What did I actually leave as a legacy for my family, for my descendants? But those are the types of aspects of life and society that we should be looking for. How are we going to leave something of value and legacy for our descendants? And as Nehez was talking about, the elder Cole was talking about, that was something that was so powerful for him in studying his ancestry, is documenting like the legacy is of his own heritage. You don't have to come from kingships and queenships and be of royalty. You can be just a good quality human being that leaves something that's very noble for your family to sustain themselves. Think of these people who are farming for generations upon generations. And some people will maybe snuff their nose about like, they're just farmers. Well, they know how to take care of themselves and feed themselves. If the grocery stores close down today, we're in trouble by the end of the week. Once you run out of groceries, you're finished. You have no way of replenishing yourself unless you're depending on the system in that way.
There's cannibalism, you can do that.
Oh man. And these are the things that we are so, again, very grateful for the Maakmaah really impressing upon people to not let go of tradition, not let go of your culture, not let go of what your ancestors were doing to sustain themselves, and encouraging us to reinvest ourselves in that path.
Yeah.
Well,
King or queen.
we can add in a couple clips of the village as well, for our viewers. Yeah, all this time we're here, we don't hear gunshots, we don't hear sirens. We just live in life, and people talk about, there's, this is on the do not travel list. This country, Burkina Faso, is on the do not travel list. But, if you look at United States and all the, probabilities of being, shot, attacked, robbed, anything that may happen, it's not like where it's just guaranteed to happen. But, we have a lot of problems in the United States that, you don't really have in the cities here. Excuse me, let me get off my horse or soapbox.
And just very recently, right before I left on this trip, you can go downtown Chicago in the middle of the afternoon and hear of young people getting shot and killed, where historically, that didn't happen, but we can see the dynamics of society is continuing to deteriorate, and they don't publicize those types of atrocities on the news. You don't hear about all of the robberies, the carjackings, and all of the heinous acts that are happening, like right in our own neighborhoods, right in our own.
Especially here in Africa, where people are running, trying to get to America. They see pictures and videos of skyscrapers and stuff like that, and they don't show that underneath these skyscrapers there's homeless people sleeping in tents.
Wait. Let's make sure we stay focused on what our podcast is about, because we tried to show the sunny side, and I'm sure all of our viewers and all of our listeners know all of the misery that's in Chicago and in every big city in the United States. But this clip is showing us going to a village called Tahbalo. Tahbalo is the founding village of the area. So yes, it's a Mola village. The Mola have a very important part to play in the Kemetic history and the Kemetic migrations out of the Nile Valley to the Niger Valley. You can even trace the name Mola and see where it's in a lot of the cultures that are coming out of the Nile Valley and that area in the Middle East. But the Mola, as the founding village in Tahbalo, the founding village of the area of Chowjo, or what the city of Sokode is, and the surrounding cities, it was important for us as members of Kebtah to go there first before we started the celebrations, because it's honoring the roots of that area. The roots of that area where the ancestors first, carrying their ancestral powers and their culture, came and planted themselves, put their bags down, took care of their families, planted their crops where they were founded. And so we had to go there, almost like giving a report, getting the blessing of that place before we really started our celebrations. In doing so, I mean, I hope everybody follows that, because I was even sitting trying to think, like, is there something that we do in America where our viewers might be able to relate to something like that, where you honoring the place where something was founded? But even like knowing that America started in, New England and in the Massachusetts area, you don't really even ever hear about having to go there first. Maybe the secret societies do that we don't know about, but I don't hear that. But as we continue saying, you as a person that carries blood that was carried generations and generations before today, you should start thinking about where your family has been, how you can honor the roots of your family, and how you can honor the roots of, what you're invested in. And for Kebtah, this was us doing that. The place where our healing center, Head Aishat, is, the land where it's kept, or the land where it's housed, really belongs to that cultural group there. And so we were going there to pay our respects to the landlords of that area. And even in speaking about the difference in, how much we've been desensitized to murder, to drugs, to crime here in the West for a long time, up until really the change of the century, like, the 80s, the 90s, close to there. If in that city where the healing center is outside of, if you hear about a person getting shot, getting killed, the whole society stands up, because that's so abnormal. Even for a long time in that area, when something was about to happen like that, because of how spiritually everything was set and, the spiritual protections that were there, that's when the lion would come out into the city and show itself. And then all of the wise people will get up and be like, why is the lion showing itself? We need to see what energies are coming, what's about to happen. So before anybody could meet an accident or, die by accident before their time, the people were already standing up to look, because nature was showing them, hey, something's out of order and something's about to happen. Now for us in the West, where we losing damn near 50 people a weekend as soon as the weather is good, there's no way we can relate to that. So it's just, again, starting to show you that we're really talking about a different world, a different level of human civilization that we no longer have really a connection to anymore, even a way to to relate to anymore. But this is fundamental in who we are, and we really need to get back to it and bring our families back to it and reinvest in it so that we can benefit from it once again.
And just in one of the clips when we were talking about this notion of the harmonization that we see within the culture, within the society, and not being able to relate to it, but when you can see that they are so in tune that they can bring healing through the plants, they can bring healing through the waters, through the food that they eat, they can be in harmony. And we were talking about the horse that was able to be laid down just because this person, this rider, is so connected in that vein. And those are the things that we don't see that keep us rooted, keep us harmonious, and striving for that connectivity to nature, connectivity to each other, and being able to like take care of one another. And it just runs throughout society, and you'll see some more of that in the clips that are coming up.
Yeah, there's more clips to come, and that's really something to think about, because when human beings are allowed to face life, face nature without being harassed by politics, by oppression, by colonial forces, by all of the things that we see, just kind of stretching our lives and making life much more complicated than it has to be, then you can see the mastery that the human being can have with nature. And so there will be clips coming up showing that mastery, whether that mastery is with iron, whether that mastery is over fire, whether that mastery is with the animals, whether that mastery is with plant life like a farmer will have or like a healer will have. You can see that because the human being is allowed to grow it. But here in the West, it's like nobody's allowed to grow anything. You go, you serve your boss, you can get good in that. But anything outside of that, your bills and your job and your children and all of that is stretching you too thin. And then any attention you might have is trying to be pulled on by the politics, by sports, by entertainment, et cetera, et cetera. So again, it's just hard to relate to. But as I was saying, we went to that village kind of seeking approval to start the ceremonies, the celebrations for the 30-year anniversary. For those who do not already know, our brothers over at the Gator Gates podcast were live streaming the celebrations that we were doing each night of the 3-day celebration for the 30-year ceremonies for Kebtah in the West. Be sure, we'll put the links up. Be sure to check out those live streams if you want to see more about some of those celebrations and what they were entailed. You know, you were right. You had the chance to be right there with us because we know this mission has touched a lot of people. So Gator Gates made sure to open that up for everybody. Please go check it out.
We are very appreciative of them making that live footage, but also keep in mind that you will be witnessing a lot of the celebratory aspects of the pilgrimage. We hope you can enjoy that, but there are, again, so many levels to what this mission is all about and what this 30-year celebration was all about. There's so many cultural experiences, the reconnection to the seen, the unseen realm, the wisdoms that were being shared, the guidance that was being given to us. It was just so much more profound in it and beyond the limitations of the celebratory aspect.
Yeah, but that being said, definitely check out Gator Gates because their footage and coverage was very extensive of the events. And, you guys will really enjoy that. Some of the commentary interviews with those who are in attendance and, interviews with the leadership of the mission as well. So they had a lot of great footage. Another thing I want to plug as well, before we went to Togo, but right at the beginning of the pilgrimage, when we were still here in Burkina Faso, we did a live broadcast with the Dusabo Museum, and we talked about and showed some of the footage of our visit to the Grand Mosque Jalaso here in Bobo Jalaso. So we'll put the link to all of that in the description. And then without further ado, I think we can get into this next clip if there's nothing else you guys want to say about the last one. And this gets to show a little bit more about the mastery of nature that our people here have. And apart from what we'll be able to show in this clip, we didn't want to show redundant footage of stuff that's already in, our sister podcast. Or the Gated Gates podcast also covers some other aspects of the mastery of nature, but this is something that happened before they went live. So we're going to show this from the first day of our trip, or excuse me, the first day of this. That's just one of many people, probably about 20 or so, at least, who came and did this dance. Mostly men. That there was also one woman who came and did her thing as well. The reason I chose this clip though is because the brother, sometimes you see these and you wonder, like, are those knives really sharp? But when you see the way that it's pulling his skin on his abdomen, it doesn't matter if it's sharp or not. That thing is gonna cut, So yeah, I mean, it's sharp. It's sharp for real, And some of these guys, they had a little.
They would use the knives to cut other things to show it was sharp. They would bring it to some of us to, feel the blade to see that it was sharp. It's sharp. We can all attest to
some of them were sharpening them first on the sharpening stone and then doing it.
But also, just for our viewers to really understand, that area of Chowjo, the Tem people and the Mola people are known as warriors. And when the Mola was coming, just as in the previous clip, when the Mola came to that area, they were really involved in a fight. They were trying to defend themselves, preserve themselves. And so you'll see that horse riding, horsemen, and mastery over iron and blacksmithing and, swords and mastering nature so that swords cannot penetrate the skin. That's kind of some of the powers that they have there. And so some of their celebratory dances and songs will be expressing that. And this is what you see in here.
I mean, in the United States, we have like air and water show and different displays of different warlike capabilities and things of that nature. This is something where people get together and show, hey, this still works for us, and let the community know what they have. I mean, probably there's a deeper meaning to it too, but this is for sure something that we can get.
Well, there's a deep meaning to, those who know, but on the surface, it's what you see in the clips, and then those who are educated will be able to see a little deeper. But either way, it is beautiful to see the pride that people have in their culture, and then the dignity they have in expressing the culture that their ancestors had. And, we all can learn from that. Even continuing to think about, what can we relate to as where our ancestors were, where they set up before wherever we are today. And, for a long time, especially with Black Americans, there was a reverence and an honor in going south to your family's place. But even that can't really be seen as the same because your ancestors didn't go there. Your ancestors were brought there. They might have been brought there and still connected with nature. They were living rural lives, even if under oppression. A lot of our grandparents and great-grandparents knew, natural medicines and remedies and things like that. So you still have that connection to nature that is still honorable and still should be, considered. But just to really see, just to make that difference of people being carried somewhere forcibly versus a people, being led somewhere and then connecting to nature in those places and then going back and honoring that connection and honoring the roots of that culture and the roots of the journey that has led to you to where you are today. All of that is really important. We tend to get so caught up and get so led in our leaders and our politicians selling us new ambitions that they can get us to look only at the future instead of understanding that we build our future based off of where our past has been, what we've gotten from our past. And that's really what the Kebtah Mission is about. That's really what the Kebtah pilgrimage is about. So for all of you who are listening to this or watching this and it's resonating with you, be sure to look into the Kebtah membership and plug yourself into a community of people all around the world, because in addition to the places I said that we have Earth Center Kebtah locations, we also have an online community that goes all over the globe, different continents, different islands. We have so many people from the islands these days, which is great. Shout out to all my island folk. But you can plug into a community of people that are all, this is their interest, this is their goal. And even in that goal and trying to honor our roots, honor where we're coming from, we all know we have to raise Africa high because Africa is the motherland of civilization, the motherland of humanity. So please check that out. We'll put the link in the description.
And we can see, I know as a young person, I used to always wonder, why are African people at the bottom of society? Why is Africa always suppressed? Why is Africa being taken advantage of and seen as the quote unquote dark continent? And as an adult, and I see all of the majesty, all of the beauty, all of the richness of the culture itself, I have a better understanding of that now, because it's we've taken the quality out of our lives. We've taken the meaning even out of our lives. We bust our butts to send our children to the university, and they're not learning anything about the universe. They're not learning about how the existence works. They're not learning about the invisible forces of nature. When they go to get into these Greek initiations, they're, figuring out how to drink and smoke and do all these crazy rituals that mean nothing for your survival of your well-being. Or of your quality. But when you see these initiations where people are learning to master themselves, master the nature, master the ability to do things that are seemingly magical, but it's really not magical if you learn the mastery of it, if you learn the science of it, if you learn the principles of it. And that's what Indigenous society is all about. It helps you to reconnect yourself, harmonize yourself, calibrate yourself to the existence. And it's such a beautiful aspect, a simple way of living and approaching life. And that's what the modern society has distracted us and pulled us away from. Don't worry about those types of things. Put your focus and attention on social media, on having fun and partying, all of these types of things, where if we put our sights back to what actually makes sense, something that can help us sustain our families and culture and our survival, then we would be much better off than following down the pathways of what is destroying humanity.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, up until now, negative press that we get about Africa, negative press about things going on in Africa, things you might look up now today. I can think of several things outside of, the propaganda about what's happening in Burkina Faso in particular, across West Africa, South Africa, East Africa, Central Africa, all types of things happening. As a result of, mostly colonial powers still trying to carve up and take what they can from Africa, but also, and if I might get a little controversial here, there's still, what is that saying? If no one sold you from inside, no one could buy you outside. These always, these colonial powers and whatever type of world powers who are trying to exploit Africa are still finding people to sell us out, to sell out our culture, to sell out our land, to sell out our traditions. And even now today, besides those people, you now have people who are becoming like, maybe desperate for whatever reason. They decide that they want to come and make a name for themselves and make a life for themselves, coming and selling their culture as a commodity, selling their spirituality as a commodity, selling their spiritual and natural services to humanity for $1, and it's not about a movement for preservation of what belongs to you, but it's about you trying to capitalize on what you can, maybe the knowledge that you have from your traditions. We have a lot of people out here doing things like that, and who, out of maybe ignorance or maybe irresponsibility, or maybe lack of authority of what they're doing, lack of traditional authorities backing what they're doing, are putting people in trouble, or putting people in bad situations who really honestly want to get back to their roots. They're finding that when they try to get back to their roots through some of these people, that they're ending up with more problems than what they started with. And so, this is why what we're doing is probably a little different than what a lot of people are doing who are reconnecting people with Africa. And I want to just, kind of highlight that a little bit. The footage that we're going to be showing you is the type of thing that you're not going to see from any of these other organizations or representatives, because we're connected in ways that probably most of them aren't. So at the end, I guess I'll see if there's any closing words before we get into the last closing footage that we're going to show you guys.
Yeah, there's so many things that we can take away from this pilgrimage experience. So many countless lessons to be garnered from the exposure, from the experience itself, from the connection to nature, to humanity. But one of the key things that I take away from all of my experiences, especially this one, is when you look and you see in the culture and how it functions. It has this order to it that is just maintained on every level. When you're talking about, for example, the warriors, the hunters, those people are there to protect. They're ones taking care and making sure that the society is maintained in the order that is set. They also have this aspect of the truth tellers, the ones that speak the language and give you the proverbs, that gives you the speech, the wisdoms, even if it's things that you may not want to hear or like to hear, but it speaks truth.
Yeah, we didn't even get to talk about the griot. Sorry, we're just so limited on time, but we're going to get there. We're going to be putting out a lot of stuff. Go ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. Every day they would come and give you proverbial speech to start your day off. And this would be messages, wisdom, song, something prophetic that you can rely upon, words of wisdom that are just, you can't even put something in America that you can connect it to, because we don't have that type of dialogue that is embedded in the culture. It's embedded in the music. It's embedded in the song. They don't sing just to sing. They sing because they're teaching lessons. They're teaching wisdoms. And so you see that aspect of the culture that's very much intact. And then you also see this aspect where everybody knows their place and they maintain it. Everyone knows their order, what they should be doing, and they can do it. They can do it even without dialogue, even without communication, because everyone's not competing with one another for their stance or for their place. It's like the women know how to be women, the men know how to be men, the elders know how to be elders, the children know their place and how to be children. And they're not just children running around just playing, jumping. They're also functioning members of the society, growing up in the traditions, learning how to be teens, young adults, and you see how that legacy is just passed down generation upon generation. So if we take all of those different aspects and we can kind of incorporate that into our lives and see the order that we might want to try to instill in our own families.
Man, that's such a big ask, man. Like that's like it's so big, because you have a culture like that, like everybody around you is functioning together in a harmonious way and everybody knowing their role. Like we're so far from that. Like we used to have that, and society, social values have degraded to such a degree that it'll be hard to get back to that, but that's why I'm saying, like, if you don't come and experience for yourself and actually immerse yourself in it for a period of time, there's no way to really have that in your mind to know how to function as a group. And, I always look at people talking about we need to stand up for Black economic empowerment and, Black-owned business, support Black-owned business, stuff like that, because obviously in the marketplace, everything is about $1. That's going to be the first thing you're looking at. But there's no way to do that without the social cohesion first. And so, we have to invest ourselves in researching and really understanding and being willing to make the sacrifices to play a role as part of a group and not be thinking I'm going to be everything that I need in myself, to really divorce that individualistic mentality is going to take a lot. And it's going to take probably generations, to be honest, as far as I can tell.
We have aspects of that even within our modern societies that we've just kind of lost, because we used to have like the block clubs. We used to have community organizations where you could chastise someone's child for stepping out of order, stepping out of line. If you see a child on the block doing something that they shouldn't.
Not now. Don't do that now.
But I'm just saying, like, we aren't that far removed that we can't incorporate those types of wisdoms back into society. But we've moved so far away from that where we're now all these individual robots. Like, it's every man for himself or herself. You don't see families even working together the way that they used to. You can have someone who's filthy rich in a family and then someone who's homeless, all under, having the same mother and father. You can have someone strung out on drugs on this side of the family and then someone else, living in the White House on the other side of the fence. And it's just like no one's looking out for one another in that dynamics. We just are kind of like, if it's not happening to me, or like, I'm all good, I've got my corporate job, I've got my retirement fund, and you could care less whether or not your siblings or your parents or your grandparents, your in-laws are sustaining themselves. And so those are like the basic values that we've kind of stepped away from, because we're again following the modern world modern way.
What I would really love to see, because honestly, you know, I talk and talk and talk about come to Africa. I know everybody's not getting over here, but what I would love to see, and for those of you who are like our really loyal viewers who have watched all the way this whole hour and plus podcast, all the way to this point, put in the comments if you think this is a good idea. I would really love to see some correspondence being built between our people in the West and our people in, you know, in here in Meritar, Africa. Like some correspondence where we get to talk to each other and really hear from each other. Some of y'all probably heard some noise outside my window. I'm here, you know, in an apartment complex where I have an office, and you know, I have like neighbors here who just came and or hanging out with my kid, who could come talk to us sometimes, and you know, I think it would be a good dynamic to really add some flavor, and just some maybe some context to give a little bit of you know, see where we're coming from, what we're talking about.
Well, those were your closing words. So I'm just going to invite all our viewers to our next episode because I do want to speak more on that. And I do want to give our viewers a chance to see a couple more clips from Pilgrimage and really to go deeper into really culture, what we talk about when we talk about culture, what we talk about when we talk about social fabric, what we talk about when we talk about that. But yeah, come to the next episode and see. Thanks for that.
Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street.